Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on how Latimer by Clarion Housing Group benefits by using Powerproject. Just a few bits of housekeeping before we start. Today's session is recorded for those people that are not able to attend, and obviously if you do need to leave halfway through, you will be able to get back to that recording to see the end of the session. If there are any questions that you have, please wait, type them into the questions box, and we'll come to those at the end of Valentine's presentation. So without sort of further ado, I'd like to introduce today's speaker. It's Valentine Shambira. He's the Senior Planning Manager at Latimer by Clarion Housing Association, and he's going to talk to us today on how Latimer by Clarion Housing Group benefits from using Powerproject. So I'm going to pass over to Valentine now.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to this session where I'm going to discuss a little bit about how Clarion Housing Group, or the Latimer development arm of Clarion Housing Group, uses Powerproject in our development process. I'm hoping you are able to see at the moment a slide that says Latimer by Clarion Housing Group. So without further ado, the history of, just a little bit about the history of Clarion Housing. It was formed in sometime in the 19th century when a very wealthy philanthropist left some of his estate for the construction of housing, for affordable housing for poor people in the UK's cities. And Clarion is sort of the Latimer, so Clarion is carried on from there since then. You may have known of it as an organization called Affinity Sutton prior to being called Clarion 7 years ago, when when Affinity Sutton came together with another big housing association called Circle Housing. As things stand, Clarion owns about 125,000 houses all over the UK, which are homes for about 380,000 people. And Clarion is the biggest housing association in the country. And our stock comprises both sort of houses and apartments all over the country. The development arm of Clarion is called Latimer, and that development arm is tasked with basically producing more of the same. So we are busy countrywide building new housing estates and new apartment blocks, both on brownfield sites and greenfield sites, and also a few sort of remodels of existing buildings that we are turning into residential estates. Moving on from that, the development arm that is trying to deliver more housing for Clarion is organized into a land and partnerships team that is tasked basically with buying new land or investing in Section 106 agreements with other developers. And then where we buy new land that has got no planning permission, we have a development team whose task is to basically get planning permission for the land. We have a project management and commercial team who are involved throughout, and their input is on project management, time management, looking at the commercial and cost planning aspects of this development. When we have procured builders, we have a delivery team whose remit is basically to deliver the schemes, to monitor the costs, to monitor the performance, to monitor the quality as the schemes go through construction. We then have a sales and aftercare team thereafter. You may wonder about sales from a housing association point of view. The basic premise is that when we have private sales, of which we do have quite a lot, the profits that are generated are plowed back into providing more affordable housing. So a typical scheme will have a mixture of tenures: private, shared ownership, which is affordable, and affordable rent. So that is how our team is organized. And we use Powerproject. The rest of this presentation is going to talk about how we use Powerproject to support all of these functions, starting with land acquisitions, going through the development process, and how we support the project management team. So the planning team, of which I'm the planning manager, sits within the project management function of the development team. However, our services are required throughout the process up to delivery. So we have a team of land people buying land, basically, project management team supporting them, a delivery team on site, and we also use Powerproject as input into our strategic report, which I shall be touching on a little bit at the end of the presentation. So when a typical scheme lands on the desks of the land team, and if it is of interest to Latimer, the planning team, of which I'm a member, is requested to look at it and come up with a timeline during which the scheme will go through design, will acquire planning permission, will procure builders or go into joint ventures with other developers, and also flesh out a high-level construction timeline. And what we present is a Gantt chart, like the one you see in the screen, with all these elements that I've just mentioned listed on it, with dates. This information is then taken by the land managers and is fed into their systems that calculate cash flow as part of the investment appraisal. As you may appreciate, the quicker the payback, or the quicker that Latimer gets its money back from developments, the general principle is that the better it is. Yeah. However, we have to be careful in that we are presenting timelines or programs that are sound and likely to be achieved. Otherwise, if you present programs that are highly ambitious, it may give a distorted view of the feasibility of the scheme from a financial point of view, and enable you therefore to buy land which then proves difficult to deliver once you've actually gone through the process of designing it and trying to build it. So as part of our due diligence, Aster Powerproject is central to how we calculate and present the time that this project need to be delivered, and this information is fed into the modeling that our land team does as part of the investment appraisals. So the programs that we present at this stage of the process are very high level, and in front of you there, what you can see is starting with the investment committee saying, okay, yes, they are interested in Clarion buying this land and delivering these houses. We then jump into the planning process, which is shown here at very high level, with a few milestones that have been picked up by our land team and fed into their model. You can also see an element of the procurement process that we go through in order to get builders on board. So typically, our schemes are either procured via two-stage design and build process, sometimes a single-stage design and build process, or increasingly we are also involved in quite large joint ventures with other developers who have a construction arm, or we have ability to build, to deliver the schemes from a construction point of view, as Latimer does not actually go onto site and build these schemes out. And what you see here is kind of a timeline that we present, a high-level timeline at this stage, that we present to the land buyers, showing a phased approach to delivering this housing estate in here. And each of the bars that you see in this area here is a phase comprising, multiple units, probably, 50 to 100 units in each of those phases. And this timeline is then taken and fed into our investment appraisal. You also see at the bottom of this that we take into account sales rates, because it is, as you will, a lot of you will appreciate, you want to deliver the construction just in time for selling. In principle, it's not a good idea to deliver units and then hold on to them for long period of time before you sell them. Right. Once we have got planning permission, there is a lot more sort of a busy hive of activity, trying to flesh out and put a lot more detail on our construction programs and on our design programs in particular. The detailed design that we use to then tender and procure our delivery teams. And to do this, we use a collaborative planning technique, where you see in this photograph various stakeholders comprising architects, engineers, in-house teams, and the like, whom we host in a facility and discuss the programs and use the last planner method, which you can see there, post-its, colorful post-its, basically stuck onto a big calendar, which we then translate into an ASTA Powerproject program that we then use to track and monitor the progress of the project. Yeah, this is a particularly useful technique in that by asking the stakeholders to tell us how long they think it will take, but also we require them to deliver to our programs. So from their point of view, it's really a matter of saying they can commit the necessary resources to deliver to the program that we have set out in our original investment appraisal. So that's how we flesh out these programs, and that's how we track them using ASTA Powerproject. The same goes for the procurement process. When we have these collaborative planning workshops, we also have our employers, agents, and cost planners, the likes of Tennant Townsend, just to name one in this particular case. And they are involved, in sort of setting out the timeline for procurement, which we then track in order to start our projects on time, on site. Now, our planning team is limited in its involvement on projects that are on site. Occasionally, we do get involved, especially when an independent view is needed on the progress that is being reported on site by our contractors or our delivery partners, such as joint venture companies. Ideally, when this situation arises, we request copies of the program in ASTA Powerproject from the contractors. And if this information is forthcoming, then right. So as planners, we visit sites sometimes in order to validate the progress that is being reported by our delivery partners. In the event that we don't have copies of the programs that are in use on site in ASTA Power Project, then we still visit the sites, but we can build the programs from PDF copies and the like back into ASTA Power Project ourselves, resource them accordingly, or resource them in line with the resources that we observe on site, and try to do some forecasting, rescheduling to see when the jobs might finish on site, or whether the reporting that we are getting is reliable. So, typical report that we produce after visiting the sites. Right, finally, I shall talk a little bit more about the reporting that we do as Latimer to the group's board, and how we use Powerproject to contribute to the reporting that we do. So what you can see in front of you there is just the number of projects that we had on site recently, 67, and the number of projects that had been approved from a land buying point of view to be bought, and the number of sites that have been acquired, 37 as you can see there, and other sites. I'm only showing this slide just to impress upon you the scale of our pipeline. Yeah, so there's a good 163 projects going through our pipeline at the moment, and once our investment committee, which is the sort of highest level body that is investing in these properties, has committed itself to buying land, then we must report them every month, the status of these projects, to try and demonstrate and show that these projects are either being delivered according to our original cash flows, or whether there are any spanners in the works or any challenges that need to be solved. And the way we report this at the moment is we have a list of projects on the one axis, and we have a timeline at the top on the other axis, and against each project on the timeline we show the number of units, basically depicting when the units will be delivered. So as we can see here, the very first job here is going to deliver 46 units sometime in 23-24, and it will deliver 52 units sometime in 25-26. And down below we can also have graphs showing annually how the units are sort of building up to a target. Now, the process at the moment of putting all these reports together is quite cumbersome, involving loads of spreadsheets and involving loads of people reporting into one central unit, and it can be fraught with inaccuracies, and it's basically a very difficult thing to do. And we are hoping in the future to be able to automate this process by investing in a system called ASTA Power Project, ASTA Power Project Vision, and linking it to a system called Power BI, which will, from the tests that we've carried out, which can help us to automate the reporting from ASTA Power Project into our pipeline, and produce reports that can be pulled by the users on demand, rather than waiting for the reports to be published sort of once a month. And in a nutshell, that is all I wanted to discuss and share with you. Our projects go through sort of land acquisition, design and planning, building on site, sales, and we use Asta Powerproject to support these projects throughout the whole life cycle. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Valentine. We have had a question in, so here, prepare yourself for a question. The question is, how has Powerproject saved you time from the previous way you used to work?
Right. It's that is a difficult question, but I'll answer it the best way I can.
Okay.
It hasn't been so much about saving time. That was not the focus of using Powerproject. The focus of using Powerproject was about bringing integrity to the, in the first instance, the modeling when we are trying to buy land, to make sure that the timelines that we build into the cash flows are robust and are benchmarked against real projects that we have in our database, using people who have construction expertise to inform the modeling. So from that point of view, it was about bringing integrity and robustness to our modeling. Now, when we come to, once we've actually bought the land, previously, a typical project would have gone through the process of trying to get planning permission, detailed design and procurement without formal Gantt charts or without formal sort of Powerproject programs used to manage this process. Now, as you probably appreciate, if you're not managing your time, then you're not managing your results. And what Powerproject has done in this instance is help us to structure and communicate what needs to be achieved and when it needs to be achieved by having a formal project plan that is shared and that is used to report every month against the project control groups. So the way that we organize the management of the project is we have a series of gateways, going from gateway 1 when the jobs come through the land team up to gateway 7 when we sign the build contract, and gateway 8 when we start on site. These gateways are actually included on our Powerproject, and we know how they are affected by the activities that we have on our detailed program, and we track these using Powerproject's sort of drop lines and the like. And I guess that is how we've managed to bring into control or to improve the time management. Yeah, and it is a matter on record that if we scroll back maybe 5-6 years ago, our projects used to take much longer than they take now to go from purchasing to starting on site. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you. And with that, there isn't any other questions at the moment. So just like to say a very big thank you to yourself, Valentine, for that presentation. Really good insight into the way that obviously Latimer at Clarion use Powerproject, and hope for the viewing audience it's been informative, and that you can find ways, if you're already using Powerproject, to use it yourselves to get these results. And if you're not using Powerproject, that it may be something that you're looking to instill in the future. So just like to say again, big thank you to yourself, Valentine, for that presentation, and have a good day.
Thank you, everybody.